Howdy fishing fam, have you just gotten started fishing and you're very curious as to why people use spinning reels over bait casters or your Zebco 33s? Well, today I'm going to explain to you the specific advantages that spinning reels have over both your spin cast or your bait casters, and then we're going to go over the specific parts that give them those advantages. Let's go ahead and jump on over to our paper. Today's color is going to be this dark blue color, and let's talk about the two largest advantages that a spinning reel gives you. And the first one is going to be its ability to cast small lures. Now it does that through a couple means here, but let's talk about the other advantage it has, and that is going to be the rod sensitivity. Now we'll talk more about that means here in a second. Hopefully I can spell sensitivity correctly. I have no idea. Wow, that is definitely not how you spell sensitivity. Well, I didn't go to spelling school, so let's look it up real quick. There, okay. Sorry about that. Apparently I need to go back and learn how to spell. Now let's jump right into the ability to cast small lures. Now that is a unique design on the spinning reel's part. Let's put it under the camera here. By opening the bell here, we kind of expose where the line can come out. Now since the spool here is not the rotating assembly, we have really nothing that we have to get moving. There's no rotating mass, no excess energy needed to get the line off this reel, other than what little bit of force it takes to pull the line off of it, which is not much force at all, surprisingly. So you can use really light lures, 8, 30 seconds, really light weights on these spinning reels and still be able to cast pretty good distances. Now, the lower weights you end up dealing with, the more you're going to combat the wind and stuff like that. But it's pretty unique to be able to cast a 1/32 ounce bait to wherever you're trying to cast it, where on a bait caster, that wouldn't even be enough to get the spool started. Rod sensitivity is something completely unique to spinning reel setups. Now, based upon the way that you hold a spinning reel, as you hold it, the handle is here, the rod goes that way, and you hold the rod that's attached to the reel, and you're mostly gripping the rod. So anything that happens to the rod, you're going to have extra feel of it with your entire hand. Now, don't catch me having you guys fish with the spinning reel on top. Please don't do that. That is not how these things are supposed to be held. Hold them like this, rod in hand, and then you have the extra rod sensitivity. Now this sensitivity is useful for feeling things on the bottom. Instead of using the line sensitivity like you would on a bait caster, you're using the rod to feel those things. So a few examples here is if you're dragging a small shaky head or a drop shot over some rocks, a brush pile, a few boulders, you can feel those things on the bottom with your rod. And then the most important one here is you can feel the bites with your rod. Using really extremely sensitive line like braid that allows that force to be transferred to your rod really fast, and you don't have to be touching the line to feel those things. This next advantage is pretty useful if you like to change out reels and swap them out with your buddies, or you guys are using different rods and you just want to trade over real quick and you don't exactly use the same hand. I like to use my left hand on my spinning reels, and sometimes my buddies want to use the right hand. So you simply unscrew this knob, and that's going to take me a minute because these threads are pretty stinking long here, and I won't do it completely, but we're going to undo that, pull this out, we'll put it in on the other side here, just like that, and then you simply would put I'll just go ahead and do it. You simply put the knob back in on the other side. It'll take me a second to get this done all the way. This has a pretty good number of threads on it. And there we go, nice and tight. And now we're over here reeling with our right hand instead of our left hand, which is definitely a pretty unique thing for spinning reels. Bait casters can't do that, and neither can your Zebco. So if you want to be able to exchange reels with a buddy or share with a buddy, spinning reels are almost designed to do that. And the last one, it actually really has less to do with the spinning reel, but the spinning reel doesn't do this, and that is to get rid of these little nasty backlashes. The nasty backlash. Okay, that was my poor attempt at Golem there, but got to get rid of these nasty backlashes that these bait casters can have. And if you have a lot of issues with bait casters and you're just not comfortable, I definitely recommend having a few spinning reels, because you just don't want to ruin your fishing day with backlash after backlash after backlash, especially if you're getting frustrated and you're not getting any better. Have a few spinning rods on the boat or at the bank will definitely turn your really bad day of fishing, and it'll turn it around and give you some chances to catch some fish. I'm going to go ahead and write that down for no backlashes. And I don't have to look that one up. I know how to spell backlashes apparently, even though there's a space in the middle, so maybe I don't know how to spell it. Before moving on, I would absolutely love it if you join the fishing fam by smashing that subscribe button. Here at Clearwater Fishing, I love to make content that is clear, simple, and easy for you to understand and apply on your fishing strategies and day-to-day fishing, even those advanced topics. Now let's go ahead and jump on into the parts of a spinning reel. We've already talked about a couple of these reels functions. And the first one here is the handle reversibility. You have the knob here, the handle knob, and then you have the handle itself. Boom, easy to switch. We already talked about that, so we're gonna go ahead and mark off the parts here. We got the handle / the knob on the other side for tightening up that handle. Next, some models have this switch somewhere on the back or on the bottom, and this switch is the anti-reverse switch. Now what the anti-reverse switch does, I think it's spelled like this, reverse. The anti-reverse, obviously, well, I say obviously like you guys are supposed to know, but anti-reverse does not allow you to spin the handle backwards with it on. And then with it off, you can spin the handle backwards and make a big mess out of your line if you don't know what you're doing. Now, that might be more useful for, let's say, the catfisherman. Not really a bass fishing thing, but if you're fighting a big catfish and instead of using your drag as much, you can use the anti-reverse and turn it off. Most spinning reels have that feature. I say that and I'm not even sure, but most of mine have that feature on it. If they don't, they're going to just have the anti-reverse already built in, and you're not going to have the option to turn the reverse on. Earlier we talked about how to hold this, and you have the reel seat here. You hold it by the reel seat. Pretty simple there. I'm not going to go too into depth there. Bringing it back underneath this camera here, we have the spool, the piece that holds the line, and you can see that I'm rotating it a little bit, and that's due to the drag system on the end. This knob here, the rotate it clockwise here, tightens up the drag, makes it harder for a fish or you to pull a line off directly. In fact, I can't pull it off there. We'll loosen it up some, and now I'm going to pull it off with a little bit of force there. And that's the drag and the spool. Let's go ahead and write those down. One drag, and we talked about the spool here. And now you see that I have braided line on this. This entire spool is not full of braid. Filling up this guy full of braid would be really expensive. I do have about half of the thickness of the spool filled with a copolymer or a mono line, something really cheap that takes up some space, because you really don't need like 300 yards of braided line on here. I used about 150 and it got it pretty full, just using, I think this is 20-pound braid. And this piece here, this wired piece here, is what we call the bell. It's spelled, I believe, like this. If not, you guys will have to forgive me. I believe it's spelled that way. But you open it up to cast, and that allows the line to freely come off. And then when you are done with your cast, you flip it back over. I know a lot of people use the handle to flip it back over, and it's not really good for your reel. It's just a lot of clacking and stuff. I just go ahead and take the time. Go ahead, take the time instead of clacking it over like this. Go ahead, and you see how my line's messed up there. That's some of the reason why you don't want to do that. Some of that is due to the fact that it's not on a rod, but let's go ahead and get this guy straightened back up a little bit. There we go. Just take the time and put the bell back in with your hand. It doesn't take much time. Just get in the habit of doing that, especially if you're starting off doing a spinning reel setup. Just take the time, click it back. And the last piece I want to talk about is the giant rotating piece. Not the thing that's turning the bell, but this whole assembly here. If you reel the handle in, it rotates that. And that's what we call the rotor. We'll go ahead and write this down so you guys can see it. And the rotor's job is simply to turn the bell so we put line back on the spool. And if you can see here, I'm going to put it here pretty still. We're going to mess up our line doing this a little bit. And you can see the spool will move in and out of the rotor. And that is what's guiding the line back on the spool evenly, so we don't have one side just bunched up full of line. If you start having that, that means you're having probably an issue with the device that makes the spool move in and out. So if you guys have made it this far in the video, do me a favor and hit the like button. And also, if you want to watch another video similar to this about the bait casters, I'll have that popped up right here as well. And if you want to hear about the most common fishing mistakes, I want to have that video up here also. So make sure you check those out. But until next time, we'll see you later, Fishing Fam.